right. Bring the meeting to order. This is for this large audience and anybody watching at home. It's the one night that I get to hold the gavel for a little bit, and that's because technically right now we don't have an organized board. We don't have a president, vice president, so on, because this is the night where we do that annually, and we have one new board member to swear in. We have one existing board member to swear in again, and so I get to facilitate through all of that, and then at the appropriate time, once we have all of the positions recognized, then I will turn that over to the newly elected board president. So if you're just wondering why, it's not because I've facilitated a coup and have effectively taken over the Board of Education. So, all right, we're going to start with agenda item 1.01, verification of the unofficial election results. And we don't have action on this because they're unofficial, but Kathy's going to come forward and just talk us through those results.
Hello, everyone. On Election Day, our Rockwood voters selected two candidates for our open seats on the Board of Education. Those unofficial results that were posted from both St. Louis County and Jefferson County show that Laura Lee Mondel and Tom Dunn were approved by voters, so congratulations. Laura Lee Mondel represented 42.17% of the vote. Mr. Dunn was 34.08% of the vote, and Azra Ahmad received 23.13% of the vote. Congratulations.
Any questions for Kathy on those? We will bring the official at a later meeting. All right, wonderful. Move on to 1.02, administer oath of office to the new board members. So I get to do that as well, and we usually do that in front of the flags for a picture op, correct, Alex? We're doing that again. So I'm just going to go alphabetically. Tom, we'll start with you. Oh, yeah. Okay, so now we move on to 1.03, and we'll just have a quick discussion about how we reorganize. There's not a lot of rocket science to it, but basically, in a moment, we'll start with electing the president, and I will take nominations, and once it sounds as though we're done nominating, I will ask for a motion to close nominations, and then we'll do a roll call vote for those closed nominations, and then however many people were nominated, I'll ask a motion, really probably just in nomination order, to elect that person. And once we have a majority vote, then that person who gets the majority vote is officially in that role. Does that make sense? We'll do the same thing for vice president, and then we'll talk a little more at that point in time about the treasurer and secretary. Clear as anything? Tom, is that clear to you? All right, so get my handy dandy pen out here, ready to write. So I would like to take, well, let's move on to 1.04, election of the board president, and I would like to take nominations for the role of board president.
I'd like to nominate Laura Lee Mondel as president.
Okay. We don't need a second, but that's okay. That's a vote of confidence, right? All right. So we have Laura Lee Mondel as a nominee. I don't know if there's an official wait time, but it sounds like things are silent. So, so I would, assuming there are no more nominations, I would entertain a motion to close the nomination for the office of President of the Rockwood Board of Education.
Moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Janet, can we do a roll call vote?
Mrs. Bays? Mr. Dole? Oh, sorry. Dr. Kinder's absent. Mr. Miller?
Ma'am.
Ms. Romberg? Mrs. Midget? Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mrs. Mondel? The motion carries.
Motion carries. So Ms. Mondel will continue or start a new term as the president of the Rockwood Board of Education. Very good. Let's move on to 1.05, which is election of the board vice president. Same procedure. So we will start with me accepting nominations for board vice president.
Nominate Lynn.
All right. Lynn Midget has been nominated. Assuming there are no other nominations, I will entertain a motion to close nominations for the office of Vice President of the Rockwood Board of Education. It's been moved and seconded. Let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Ma'am.
Ms. Romberg? Yes. Mrs. Bays? Yes. Mrs. Midget? Mrs. Dole? Miss... Oh, gosh. Mrs. Mondel?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Did something happen? We didn't
I don't
know.
know.
Get to the secretary part. We're going to see how that goes.
Might be time for a new one.
Yeah, being a new secretary.
No wonder Matt left the board. All right, very good. So congratulations to Laura Lee as president and Lynn Midget as vice president. Congratulations on being Mrs. Dole. Moving on to 1.06. Yeah, strike that from the record. Do not put that in the minutes. 1.06, election of the treasurer. It has been customary for probably as long as we know in the Rockwood School District that the treasurer is the chief financial officer for the district. Paul is not here. I promise he's not bailing on this job. He will be here shortly. So we don't really need to do an election unless someone feels differently about that. Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion that Chief Financial Officer Paul Northington continue to serve as the treasurer of the Rockwood School District for the 2019-20 fiscal year.
Second.
Did you get that, Janet?
You did.
There were 2 seconds there, but you go with either Randy or Ms. Dole.
Pick me, please.
All right, moved and seconded. Let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Miller,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Romberg, Mrs. Bays, Mr. Dunn, Mrs. Vidyette, Mrs. Mondo.
I had to think about that, didn't you?
I'm really going to be off now the rest of the night.
All right.
You might have to change your
So
name.
that motion passes. We'll
Something
continue.
with a D, you know, so.
We'll continue with Paul in that role. Move on to agenda item 1.07, election of secretary to the Board of Education. And likewise, it has always been customary that that the secretary to the board serves in that role. And to be clear, there are school districts that assign an actual board member to that role alongside the board's secretary, which is kind of strange, especially when you have someone as wonderful as we have in Janet, and we've always been blessed with good board secretaries. So unless somebody feels differently and would like to nominate somebody else, I would entertain a motion that Janet Sadowski continue to serve as the secretary to the Board of Education for the 2019-2020 fiscal year.
So moved. Second.
All right. Sounded like Jamie beat Lynn there. So moved and second. Let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Miller,
Ma'am.
Mrs. Romberg, Mrs. Bays, Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mrs. Midyette, Mrs. Mondo.
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right, motion carries. So Janet stays in that role, whether she wanted to or not. And sadly, this brings a close to my time with the gavel for
Yes.
this year, and my last time with the gavel for the Rockwood School
Well done.
District. So,
Thank you, Dr.
All
Burns.
right.
We appreciate it.
you bet.
All right, next, I need a motion to authorize the district to continue the use of the current signature plate until new plates bearing the signature of the 2019-20 President Treasurer are received.
Moved.
Well, and so technically, we're good,
Change.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so do we still need to vote on that, or,
If we have a motion, I
yeah,
probably should.
all right, so, we have a motion and a second? Roll call, please.
Ms. Romberg, Mrs. Bays, Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Ma'am.
Mrs. Midyette, Mrs. Mondo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next I need a motion to motion that current board members reaffirm their commitment to the Code of Ethics.
Moved.
We have a motion and a second. So typically we read these, is that what we're doing tonight, Code Committee? Popcorn, or we're starting, Director Romberg, do you want to start us, please?
Policy O Code of Ethics. To govern and control by law, govern attitudes and throughout the district, tied to developing and setting priorities for an educational program. 3, to exercise judgment in reviewing, considering, and voting on district-wide policies affecting the operation of the schools. 4, to oversee the management and fiscal control of the schools as provided by law, and to review, evaluate, and judge the effectiveness of the educational program.
Roles of members of the Board of Education are to recognize that it is the responsibility of the board to see that the schools are properly administered, not to administer them. To hold the superintendent designee responsible for the implementation of board policies and the administration of the district. To give the superintendent designee authority commensurate with his/her responsibility. To vote on board members only after considering the recommendation of the superintendent designee and any interested citizens. To maintain a working rapport with other members of the board and the superintendent. To respect and encourage the right of others to hold and express opinions. To support the board once a legal decision has been made by a majority vote. To avoid inappropriate or disparaging remarks in or out of board meetings about other board members or their opinions. To realize that the responsibilities are district-wide. To recognize that the authority rests with the board in legal session and no individual board member has legal authority to request action from the staff. To avoid any comments which may be interpreted as undermining the administration of the district. To assure that special committees, when appointed, have a well-defined objective and there is understanding that the committee serves in an advisory capacity.
to the board or through the or staff, not over or around them. Support the superintendent's designee's effort to appoint the most qualified persons as employees of the district. Reinforce the efforts of the superintendent/designee and the staff so that they may perform their assigned responsibilities in the most effective manner. Provide the superintendent/designee counsel as requested or required. To make every effort to keep all citizens informed about the quality and condition of public school education in the district. Initiate and implement all efforts to secure adequate financial support for the district. Finally, assure that all transactions of the district are ethical, open, and above board.
Very well. Thank you very much. All right, next up is 110, Board Standing Committees and Assignments. So we basically have Missouri School Boards Association delegates. Those are 3. Is that up there? Okay. Those are 3. Policy Review Committee, 1. SSD Governing Council, 1 plus 1 alternate. Communications, Outreach, and Public Engagement, COPE Committee, that's 3. And Recognition and Awards Committee, that is 1. I would like to start by saying I have never had the opportunity to sit on the SSD Governing Council. So I would either, I'd be your alternate if you want to consider, continue to be the member. Is that all right with everyone? I've never done that, so I would appreciate that opportunity. What else? Do we feel like our COPE committee is in good shape? That you've been there for, just 1 year? Okay. Yes? You guys are good?
Yeah, I've been on longer, but we're in the middle of working on a couple of things, so I'd love to kind of keep some continuity there. If
That's good
okay.
for me, if that's good for everyone else. So,
Would stay on the RAP committee
okay.
and as a
We're getting you there, Tom. Hang on.
as an MSB delegate.
Okay. Oh, you want the MSBA? Okay. So MSBA, we need 2 more. Dr. Kinder's not here. Do we give him something that? I'm just joking.
I don't think we would object to keeping.
Why don't we keep him on there? Oh, I guess I was a delegate on there, wasn't I? Somebody else want to do that? Or I would do it again. Tom? Any of these look interesting to you? The Policy Review Committee does not meet very often, correct?
No.
So that might be a good one to get your feet wet.
A lot of times email reviews, but it's we're not anticipating heavy policy reviews, just the normal.
Okay. Randy, I guess I took your spot with SSD.
Fine.
Are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Do you want to do the what about the MSBA one?
Sure, I can take that on.
That sound good?
Absolutely.
So we're good, right,
Okay,
Janet?
so Tom's doing the policy review. Randy comes off that, but Randy is going to take
SBA.
your spot as a
Right.
delegate.
Right.
on-
Correct.
We're leaving
MSBA.
Keith on as MSBA as well?
Correct.
Keith staying on? Okay.
Yes.
Wait,
Keep
but you're
Keith,
coming off.
keep Keith,
And keep
remove
Tim.
me, and put Randy in place of me. That's all you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Tammy's
Randy
still-
and I are really swapping.
Yes,
That's what we're doing.
got it.
Okay, we good with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone? All right, so then I need a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel, student matters, and legal actions, causes of action, or litigation. A motion as seconds. We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Ma'am.
Ms. Romberg? Mrs. Bays? Mrs. Midyat? Mrs. Mondel?
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right, we'll be back. Thank you for coming, Dunn children in particular. It's pretty cool, huh?
Congratulations
And-
to you all as well.
And Mrs. Dunn as well, and everyone else. All right, I want to apologize, first of all, for coming out of close late. We had a lot of things to talk about, so I apologize that we are 10 minutes late right off the bat. But we're going to call the meeting to order, and if you would all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States. Nation.
All right, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Moved.
I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. A motion to approve the Board of Education meeting minutes for the March 7th, 2019 meeting.
Move.
I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. We have no patron comments, correct? So we're going to move on to superintendent and board comments. So we'll start with our superintendent, Dr. Eric Knost.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good to see everyone. I have quite a bit of exciting things to talk about and inform you. Now, Ms. Mondel, you've pushed this into my direction and infringed upon my
There's a little
my
thing down
space.
here, and we're pushing it to see who gets more space.
Yeah, too much information.
Uh-huh.
All right, it has been our custom the last 5 years when we make administrative hires in closed session, we like to come out in open session and announce them. So we've got a number of those tonight, and the majority of them, all but one, are here. So we'd like to have them just stand after I announce them, and we'd like to give them a warm welcome. So we're going to start with our Executive Director of Communications. Tonight, the board voted unanimously to put Mr. Alex Fees into that new role. Alex is currently the Communications Coordinator for the Rockwood School District, a position he has held since 2016. He has 25 years of experience as a communications manager, producer, videographer, and reporter for St. Louis television news stations from 2003 to 2009. He produced weekly episodes of Cardinals Crew, a program for kids and some adults on Fox Sports Midwest. And Mr. Fees earned a bachelor's degree in mass communication from Southeast Missouri State University. He will be assuming the position currently held by Kathy Orta, who is retiring at the end of the school year. So please welcome Mr. Alex Fees. Thank you, Alex. Next, Marquette High School head principal. Tonight, the board voted unanimously to appoint Dr. Steve Hankins to that position. Dr. Hankins is currently the associate principal at Marquette High School, a position he has held since 2015. Prior to that, he was an assistant principal at Fort Zumwalt South High School. He started at Marquette High School in 2002, where he served as a teacher, coach, and ultimately assistant principal. Dr. Hankins earned a doctorate in educational leadership from Maryville University. In addition, his master's degree in social studies education is from Truman State University. His bachelor's degree in history is from Northeast Missouri State University, and he replaces, or he will, I always hate to say replaced, he will assume the position currently held by Dr. Greg Matheson, who is leaving the district for a promotion of sorts in another district we will not name. But we're getting even with him, right? And we'll talk about that in a minute. Everybody welcome Dr. Steve Hankins. And we also had the board vote for our new principal for Kerrs Mill Elementary School, and that is Ms. Beth Schrotta. Beth is currently the assistant principal at Kerrs Mill Elementary School, a position she has held since 2015. This summer, she will serve as the principal of Rockwood Summer Academy at the Kerrs Mill location. She began her career in education in the Parkway School District. Yes, see, another one. That's right. I forgot about that, Beth. As a first grade and fourth grade teacher, Ms. Schrotta earned a master's degree in educational administration from Missouri Baptist University and a master's degree in elementary education from Truman State University. Her educational specialist degree is from Missouri Baptist, where she is currently pursuing her doctorate in educational leadership. Her bachelor's degree in psychology is from the Truman State University, and she will be assuming the position currently held by Dr. Padberg, who is leaving to another district at the end of the year. So everyone please welcome Beth Schrotta. Okay, moving on. We've got more. Our coordinator of math, grades 6 through 12, the board voted tonight unanimously to bring Ms. Marietta Kozatek into that role. Marietta is currently a mathematics teacher at Lafayette High School and serves as the math department chair. She began her career in Rockwood in 2005 as a substitute teacher and math department aide. She has served on curriculum writing and review teams for Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Math Intervention. Ms. Kozatek earned a master's degree in education from Missouri Baptist University. Her bachelor's degree in economics is from the George Washington University, and she will be assuming the position currently held by Lisa Lingle, who will retire at the end of June this year. So please welcome Mary Kozatek. All right. Another position we have filled this evening is the Werther Elementary School Administrative Intern, and the board has voted unanimously to put Ms. Jennifer Udy in that role. Jennifer is currently a 5th grade teacher at Werther Elementary, a position she has held since 2014. In addition, she serves as the 5th grade team leader. She has also served as the assistant principal of the Rockwood Summer Academy in 2017. Ms. Udy earned a master's degree in educational administration from Southwest Baptist University and a master's degree in education from Lindenwood University. Her bachelor's degree in psychology is from Missouri State University, and she will be assuming the position currently held by Corey Luchek, who will be the assistant principal at Eureka Elementary effective July 2019. So everyone please welcome Ms. Jennifer Udy. And we also had to make a decision about a coordinator for our Partners in Education program. And the board voted unanimously tonight to select Mr. Emmanuel Young for that position. Mr. Emmanuel Young is currently a business education teacher in Parkway at Parkway West High School. That will only last until the end of this school year. In 2018, he launched Virtual Enterprise International, a program to support teachers with a project-based career readiness program that fosters collaboration, problem solving, and soft skill development in students. Prior to that, he was the Career and Technical Education Coordinator and Business Education Teacher at Manhattan Business Academy in Manhattan, correct? Yes. Where he coordinated student career development opportunities with the support of local business partners. Mr. Young earned a master's degree in secondary education from Brooklyn College. His bachelor's degree in business administration is from Morehouse College, and he will be assuming the role that is currently held by Ms. Kim Litzow, who is retiring. So everyone please welcome to Rockwood, Mr. Emmanuel. I was going to ask you to introduce your family. You can still do that. Yes. What is your wife's name? Thank you. Thank you. All right. The next position, the only one we have left, could not be with us tonight in his current district. He had a concert that he needed to attend, and Katie and I always agree when that happens to tell them, tend to the children that you are currently being a champion for. So we don't want them to feel pressure to leave to come here. But we had to select a new administrative intern for, Blevins Elementary School. Mr. Tim Ribbles. I've known Tim for a long time, my Melville years, and I still don't know if I say his name right. I used to say Rebels, but I heard it pronounced differently tonight, so I could be wrong. So let's just say Rebels. And Tim, I'm sure you're watching. Forgive me. Tim is currently a 2nd grade teacher at Forder Elementary School in the Melville School District, a position he has held since 2007. He is a participant in the Melville Leadership Development Program and serves as a substitute principal at Forder and Beasley Elementary School. Tim earned a master's degree in educational administration from Maryville University and a master's degree in education from Southwest Baptist University. His bachelor's degree in elementary education is from the University of Missouri St. Louis, and he will be assuming the position currently held by Stephanie Taggart, who is leaving the district at the end of the school year. So even though Tim is not here, we hope that he watches this video. Let's all welcome Mr. Tim Ribbles. All right. I've got a few other comments and announcements. If you'll afford me just a little more time, Madam President.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Wanted to mention that all 4 Rockwood high schools have students who were selected to go to the Missouri Scholars Academy. That's a high honor. Happens in the summer. Summit academic stretch teacher Alexandra Forgerson, do I say that right? I don't know. I'm so bad with names. Said that this prestigious program accepts students in the top 0.5% academically of the state. And students are accepted based on a composite score of GPA, pre-ACT, teacher recommendations, and personal narratives. So it's great that we have representation from all of our high schools. Also wanted to mention that we once again had a great year with bus inspections. We've had 100%, I think, since for the previous 2 years. This year, we can call it 100%, but we got 99%, I think. No, wait, did we score? I should probably read what's in front of me. Yes, we had one bus with a brake light out. And, you know, a light can go out 2 seconds before they do the inspection, so that's the only thing. Yes. So congratulations to our mechanics and all of our workers in the transportation department. They continue to do a great job, and they continue to validate our move to bring our buses in-house. It's been nothing but wonderful. So congrats to our bus administration, our mechanics, and everybody involved in the program. Paul, thanks for your leadership over that department. Wanted to mention the Relay for Life. This year, the 2019 is a little later. It's June 1 at Summit High School, scheduled from 4 p.m. to midnight. The opening ceremonies begin at 6. Rockwood Summit Parent Relay for Life committee member Kara White says this year's theme is relay. That's spelled differently, as in tropical and Hawaiian. Relay, like a Hawaiian lay, right? Yeah. So that's very clever. But always a great event. They have done just phenomenal work through Relay, raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's just been so successful, and so we're wanting to support their efforts again. And then 18 Rockwood Elementary Schools completed on April 8th, or competed, I'm sorry, in the first, right here in this room, Battle of the Books. Coolest thing ever. Many of us were there. I had the honor of emceeing it. It was so much fun. It was sponsored by our Rockwood School District librarians. They are so wonderful. It was a trivia-style contest, paired teams of students against each other to test their knowledge about books designated as Mark Twain nominees. 8 rounds of 10 questions. Students came up with answers to questions about the books, and definitely fosters reading comprehension, and the kids just had a blast. It was so much fun seeing this room filled with kids being very competitive about the knowledge they achieve from reading Mark Twain books. And let's see, last but not least, I've got another announcement too, but Rockwood Schools have selected their grade level Teachers of the Year, and we showed up with cameras rolling to surprise those 3 educators. We have 1 middle school, 1 high school, and 1 elementary school, and we celebrated those announcements, and we're going to share that video with you right now.
Hi everybody, Eric Knost here, your superintendent. What a great day. We are traveling around to 3 different schools today to award and recognize our elementary, middle, and high school Teachers of the Year, district-wide Teachers of the Year. It's going to be a great time. We hope you'll stay with us, come along, and enjoy what we're about to do. Mr. Ribbe, you are the Rockwood District-wide High School Teacher of the Year. Congratulations. They're not coming in here, are they? Hi, boys and girls. What are you doing? You have to turn around. Oh. You are the district-wide elementary teacher of the year. And we've surprised you. No, we're not kidding.
Petticoat is the teacher of the year of all of the elementary schools.
Uh-oh, cake flew off. That's
And a good time was had by all. It was a great day. Have one more announcement, and this is a very fun announcement because the only people in this room that know about this announcement are those of us that were in closed session. So it's going to be a bit of a surprise. A couple of years ago, when I had to fill the position for our curriculum and professional development overarching person, if you will, I was messing around with the structure of that department, and I decided to create that as an executive director position. And Shelley Willott was willing to come into that role and not only assume that very, very large district-wide and difficult role as an executive director, she also was willing to do that without replacing her then current role of being a director. And Shelley has done work beyond my expectations. She has been phenomenal, and we never did replace her former role, and she just absorbed that with such grace and dignity, and her knowledge and expertise and leadership and collaborative skills have been so wonderful for Rockwood. And Shelley, because of that, I asked the board tonight to change your title to Assistant Superintendent, and they unanimously agreed to do that. So in a way, let's welcome Shelley to her role of being an Assistant Superintendent for the district. And I do want to mention, superintendents, when they're on their way out the door, are notorious for making changes. But I want to say that Mark Miles, he's not the superintendent yet, by the way. Just to remind everybody about that. But Mark and I have had a good transitional relationship, and he's had some time to meet Shelley, and he is 100% on board with this, and very excited about it too. And I sent him a text today just to remind him of our conversation and to say, I want to make sure, because I'm taking this board, and he wrote back with exclamation marks, absolutely, I'm fully on board. So Shelley, you had no idea that was coming. No one knew that was coming except those of us that were in closed session tonight, and it's very appropriate, and you'll have some big news. Yes. So congratulations, Shelley, and thank you for your hard work. That is the end of my report.
All right. Good job. Any board comments?
I've got a board comment. I'd like to welcome Tom to the table, and congratulations to you and Lorley again for running a campaign and being elected and joining us up here.
Tom?
All right, so let's move along. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted. Moved. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes. There are several items tonight on donation types, a rather long list, but I'm going to read it to you anyhow, which you should not do, but I'm going to. First is donation to Crestview Middle. Elizabeth Williams, a non-monetary, worth $1,400 to be used by the orchestra department. She's donating a string bass instrument donated to Crestview for the orchestra use. Early Childhood Special Education, PTO, monetary $2,715 for enrichment materials for ECSE learners. The PTO's gift will fund numerous activities that will enrich learners immediately and in the years to come. Donation to Marquette High School. Modification of facilities, $9,430 to replace the old Marquette sign, which I really liked. Replacing, it was too small though. Replacing the existing Marquette building sign with new LED illuminated direct mount channel letters. The next one is a donation that we've seen before. It's from VJ Mancuso Foundation, Jennifer and Vincent Mancuso. Technology, $2,245.95 donation for 5 iPads with cases. Preschool students, 80 pairs of scissors for gifting to PAT families, $200, 50 books for incoming kindergarten students, and the word collector, $270. If you've been here at the board meetings, Mancusos donate about every other month, it seems like, from their foundation. Last one are donations to Rockwood Summit High School. Monetary, $11,103 to support staff and students over the 2018-19 school year. PTO donated $11,103 in PTO grants to the science department, the math department, the library, field trips, scholarships, Renaissance Fund, Student Opportunity Fund, Alumni Fund, Veterans Day events, conference dinners for staff support. That's quite a donation. Christine Davis, Hardline Contracting, $1,620. Aid in the purchase of a one-man tackling sled to reduce player-to-player contact during practice on tackling. Hardline Contracting, Chris Davis is donating the full cost of a one-man tackling sled and shipping to be purchased through the school district. This sled will help reduce full contact tackling player-to-player because they're all able to practice on the field. Thank you very much. All those donations.
Thank you, Dr. Kinder. Anyone else?
To pull 7.15 to abstain.
All right, so the motion is to approve the consent agenda items as submitted. All those in favor say aye.
Thank you.
And she's good on her abstention. Okay, good. All right, next, moving on to the agenda items. 8.01, Professional Development Legislative Update. I'm going to let Dr. Knost introduce our guest.
We've been, I think all of my years here, I've been bringing someone to give the new board, after we reorganize, just an overview of the legislative bills and the process at Jeff City. And this is the first year I've asked Paul to do this, but Paul is, for the last 2 years, has been the executive director for Ed Plus. Paul and I go way back. We've known each other for many, many, many years. And Paul has turned into, he's always been an advocate for public education, but he has kind of upped that role at Ed Plus, and he spends a lot of time down at Jeff City. So since he's right here and helps serve our district through his leadership at Ed Plus, I thought it'd be appropriate to bring Paul and let him just talk a little bit about the legislative update. So, Paul, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to share. Is this the right clicker, I assume?
Give it a shot.
All right. So legislative session, we have about 5 weeks left. We hit the midterm about 3 weeks ago. There are some big remaining issues that if you're following the paper at all, the budget obviously is something that continues to kind of sit in the back and plague the state, but also highway funding. But there still is a focus on school reform, and mostly that comes through educational savings accounts, or as we refer to them, vouchers often, and also charter school expansion. Let's start at least by talking about the budget. So House Bill 2, which was the budget bill this year, passed out of the House, and that moved it over to the Senate. What that does for schools, it does call for full funding of the formula, or the foundation formula, which is great, and also adds about $5 million to transportation. If you follow transportation, we are inadequately funded, to say the least, in transportation. Anything helps, but that $5 million really just barely puts a dent in what really needs to happen to bring us up to some semblance of full funding there. Senate will take up the budget in the coming weeks. We don't know when for sure. They've been working through their appropriations committee to try and come up with what they feel as though that appropriate budget is. When they bring that then to the Senate floor with any amendments, if there's changes, obviously they'll have to go back to a committee then and come up with some compromise between the House and the Senate as to what that budget might look like. As far as numbers, when you look at the budget, one of the things that's really plaguing us is our revenue is not tracking well. You would think in a booming economy such as we have right now, revenue would not be an issue, But as of, and I've got some new numbers here, but as of a couple weeks ago, we were 339 million behind. Updated this week on the 8th, we were 251 million, and they keep thinking maybe we're going to see some gains as tax revenues start coming in, but actually today that number increased back to 258 million, which is about 3.75%. If I'm guessing, I'm thinking the budget, realistically, if we get back to 3% down, we're probably lucky even with some of the income tax returns that come in. Why does that happen? Realistically, over the last several years, the legislature's pulled several levers when it comes to the way that we do our taxing. They've lowered corporate income tax, they've lowered personal income tax, they pulled some other levers on some different taxing schemes, and really, when you pull all those, you don't know how it's all going to end up. You couple that with the federal tax changes that went with the code, and possibly some withholding tables that weren't accurate, and we may have a mess on our hand, I'll just be honest. I don't know ultimately where it ends up, but to think we're going to make up that 4% with really only about a week left before what we would see as those final income pieces coming in from our personal income tax, I don't see that happening. So I don't think we can plan on a revenue stream as large as it was a year ago, which really, when you think about it, in a booming economy, we need to be worried. The other piece of that, unlike some states, we've pulled these levers now, we've lowered income taxes, we've put some pieces in that will continue to lower those if certain things happen. But with the Hancock Amendment that was passed years ago, our legislature can't undo that. To undo that, it has to go back to the people. And if you follow taxing in Missouri, we're not real successful at passing many tax increases. You can look to cigarette tax, road taxes, things that you would think would be things that would be easy to pass, they don't. So again, our opportunity to kind of change these things going forward might be somewhat difficult, so we need to watch that. Charter school expansion, it started in the House this year, and by charter school expansion, what we're looking at, the way the bill ultimately hit the House, was first-class counties, which includes St. Louis, Jefferson, St. Charles, Jackson, and Clay. And then also they added in urban districts. So urban districts are municipalities with more than 30,000 people. So for most of those, they're in those first-class counties already, those municipalities, but there are a few that aren't, Columbia, Springfield, and St. Joseph. So that's where the charters would be allowed to expand. It was brought up for debate on the House floor before spring break, so that was approximately 4 weeks ago now. We really thought it was going to come to a vote. It was there was a lot of arm twisting and other things that happened. But when the vote whips indicated it could really be a tight vote, but ultimately it didn't go to a vote, which was probably an indication that the House leadership did not feel as though they had the votes to pass that legislation at that point. Since that time, Rebecca Raber, the representative from Lee Summit who was carrying the bill, was involved in a car accident coming back from spring break that Monday that she was returning back to. So that bill's kind of sat. She was carrying the bill. We don't know what that means. She still remains in the hospital, last I heard. You know, we wish her well and hope that for a speedy recovery, but it has caused that bill to stall a little bit. But meanwhile, over in the Senate, they did take up charter, may have heard of this, I think it was 2 weeks ago now. They took up charters for debate on a Tuesday night. That debate lasted 11 and a half hours before that bill was laid over finally about 1:30 a.m. When they lay that bill over, what it means is that bill could come up at any time in the future, that they may go back to that debate. Some anticipate that that will come up here soon. They indicate that they may go for 30 or 40 hours on this. The idea of school reform is very important to some of the leadership, both in the House and the Senate. It appears as though there's some indication that there's some folks that really are going to do their best to filibuster that bill because they feel strongly charter expansion is not the right move right now for our state. There have been some amendments added to kind of tweak and change, but nothing that would indicate to us, based on what we see, that not having charter expansion with some controls on it would be good. You can look at data from that have been provided by Kansas City and looking at St. Louis, and typically where charters are left to expand unchecked, what it does is erode the direct instruction and the extracurricular activities that are afforded to kids in those districts where they're eroding that money from. So I'm not saying that charters couldn't work somewhere, but we need to have some checks and balances and some accountability systems that make sure that we're not eroding the support of the kids that we really aim to help. So we'll continue to watch that, but I'll be honest, if it goes to a vote in the Senate, meaning that filibuster dies or somehow that moves to that vote, we feel as though they would have enough votes to pass charters, that charter expansion bill. If that happens, it would move back to the House, much like I was talking about the budget bill. It would move, and then they would take up that again. And my feelings are, while there was enough no's to probably hold that off the last time, having momentum coming back from the Senate might indicate that some of those House votes that were what we'd call a soft no may switch, and we may actually see charter expansion pass the House as well. So we do have to watch that. It's a continue kind of looking, and again, we have charters that are part of Ed Plus. I want to make clear, we support those charters that are in St. Louis. We support those kids, and we want them to have the best instruction possible. Oftentimes those kids come back and forth amongst our schools, so we want to make sure that they are receiving the best services possible, but we don't think expansion is the right way to go right now. Another thing we're watching is the vouchers or educational savings account. It has come up once on the Senate, and it died after maybe 3 or 4 hours of debate. Right now, there's two bills, House Bill 478 and Senate Bill 160. The House bill right now is at a $50 million tax credit. Senate one has been shifted to a $25 million from a $50 million tax credit. And what that would be is scholarships for students to attend private or even a public school outside of their geographic bound. The thing of it is that that money, whether it's that $50 or $25 million tax credit, would come right off the top of general revenue. So when you think about that right now, I just talked about that budget mess we have. The thought of taking additional revenue off the top of a budget that may already be struggling isn't probably going to sit real well with legislators. Even the most education reform would probably look at this, and when we can't pay for highways and bridges, we can't pay for some other things that we need to do, the idea of maybe peeling that off in a situation like this, I don't think nearly was appealing as maybe if they thought our budget was really sound. So looking at that, I will tell you one of the things beyond the budget concern, the current way that the bill is drafted would be the most unregulated voucher system in the United States. There's other states that have voucher systems. They've been proven in many places to not work and not provide the relief that they would hope to. But to think that ours might be, to go from zero to the most unregulated would be troubling as well. So we're continuing to watch that. Again, I think because of the financial implications, I don't believe right now that it will move. But again, we have to watch it because things happen in an instant. There we go. Calendar bill. House Bill 161, this is one that we watch here locally quite a bit because most of us have had local control to be able to set our calendars. We appreciate that. It allows us to work with our communities to do the things that we need to do. The bill right now would prohibit local school districts from starting more than 14 days before the first Monday in September. Why the first Monday? It's Labor Day. Okay, so when you look at that, the earliest the district could ever start once every 7 years would be the 18th of August. That's the very earliest. So again, that has passed through the House. It was close, but it passed. It actually went to a committee hearing in the Senate on Tuesday. I was there to listen to the committee hearing. It's going to pass. I would, based on what I saw in the committee, absent something drastically changing, I do not see that bill not making it across the finish line. What's that mean for us? It means that we're going to have to start adjusting our calendars, not for next year, but for that 2021 school year. Really what's driving this is tourism. It was as blatantly said in the committee hearing as you would ever want. We need kids to work. We need kids to work at our amusement parks. We need kids to work at our canoe rental places. We need kids to work at our RV parks. And if they're at school, they can't work. I find that alarming that would go through an education committee, and we think that that's okay. But again, that's where we stand. You know, I hate to see the local control erode. I will tell you, as I sit there, I try to find a good out of everything. If it is a catalyst, and we have to look at what we're doing as a calendars, as a region, and as a district, there are some other pieces that may also pass. Some flexibility with make-up days for snow days. Some flexibility with some virtual pieces that we may be able to utilize. And I think maybe if we're going to have the bad of a catalyst that's going to take away local control, maybe it's a time that we can look at it as a region and say, can we come up with a regional best practice calendar and try and get our school districts to get as close to that as possible, still allowing them to do their local things that they need to, whatever they may. But if we can get that and we can have some power maybe in some common days across the region where our districts are off to do some powerful PD, where we can go amongst districts or amongst regions to do some things, maybe that's a positive that could come out of that. Even though we don't like the catalyst, if you got to have a catalyst, let's try and make something good with it. Let's see. I do have a few other ones here. A reading bill. You may recall last year there was a reading bill that was working awfully fast towards the end of the session that almost made it across the finish line. This one's come up again. I'm all for kids having reading plans. There's no doubt that I think it's good for us to recognize kids need reading plans. What's difficult with this one is they're very prescriptive in the way that we're going to instruct kids. And they take that away from our professionals and their ability to be able to make judgments on what a kid needs and what a student needs to have success in reading. And when that happens, I don't think we're allowing our educators to do their job. The other thing, some of the prescriptive pieces in place are rather expensive if you implement it on large level, and there is no additional funding. This one's kind of stalled a little bit. We'll continue to watch it. I do think that it will grow legs again towards the end, maybe be hooked onto another bill. But again, it's one we're watching, and I just don't like them taking away that professional judgment of our teachers. We have them there for a reason. They know the kids, and to think that we could legislate something that's the best practice for instruction, I find that hard to believe. Other ones, really the gifted one, it may move across. It won't really affect many of our St. Louis districts or even Jefferson County, St. Charles. Most of us have gifted program. It's one to watch. Another one's looking at teaching appropriate online behavior. Obviously, folks that have been involved in character education for a while probably are doing this anyways, but looking at that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. There was a bill that passed through the House that allows for Hebrew scriptures in the New Testament to be a class in a high school. It's supposed to be a curricular-related class, not a teaching the word of the book, so to say. There is also this was one that I kind of alternative methods to make up snow days. That's something that again might give us a little relief if we do have to force some calendar pieces to fit into a new bill. There are a couple that aren't good that we watch because I don't think they do what we want in education. One of them would move the school board elections from April municipal to November. Reason we don't think that's a good idea, school district or school board elections are nonpartisan. If you go into a November election, we know those are very partisan. Do we lose that flair of a nonpartisan school board election and get sucked up into that nasty political world of partisan politics? We don't think that's good. Also, there's a change possibly prohibiting us using funds to educate our communities about tax levies and bond issues. Not propaganda, but, hey, this is what we're going to do with the bond issue, or this is what the tax levy would provide for us. I don't know why we wouldn't want an educated electorate, but to me that would make sense if we'd want people to know what they're going to be voting on. And it would seem to me that would be a job for our schools to, our school districts to do. There is one that prohibits lobbyist gifts to local government officials such as you all, also school officials such as Dr. Knows. That seems to fit okay because we really don't have lobbyists really lobbying us a whole lot. The problem is they've extended the definition so broadly that it would go to vendors. So oftentimes our vendors support other things at school, whether it's a scholarship, whether it's an activity, it's a PTO. So we have some of those vendors. Vendors have, if they get lumped into that lobbyist, they wouldn't be able to expend those funds on behalf of the school district because it'd be looked at as trying to influence the decisions made by you all. While we understand it, we think that's an awful broad definition that's not really fair because some of those things are really good for kids. So we're watching that. Again, I think the idea of throwing the word lobbyist in there and extending to vendors carries with it pretty powerful images for us that, maybe we're all, having lobbyists courting us all the time, and we just know that's not to be. The last one would be good. It would require the State Board of Education to modify the accreditation standards for special school districts. There's actually two in the state, one of them that serves St. Louis County that we're all familiar with, and then there's also one in Pemiscot County down towards Boot Heel. What it would do is give some different standards there because obviously when we recognize that we're working with kids that have special needs, there are some things that are going to be different when we accredit. It'd be hard to think that we want to have a student who may be medically fragile, expect them to be at school 90% of the time. We know that their disability may result in some of that. Additional bill, there was one other one that I thought was kind of funny that would require at least 50% turnout in a municipal election for us to pass a bond issue or tax levy. I'm not saying 50% approval, meaning 50% have to show up. Anybody that goes to municipal election knows that 50% would never show up. So that would be something, I truly look at this as a little bit of a gig at municipalities that run elections in April. I don't believe this one will necessarily get, because let's be honest, most of our non-national elections, we don't have 50% in November either. So, you look at that, I think it's a little bit of a gig at us, and we'll take it for that. Lastly, there were a couple big happenings today I want to make sure you were all aware of. It does sound like it's going to make it across the line that the pawpaw tree will be the state fruit tree, and that the hellbender will be the state endangered species, and July 7th will be Missouri State Sliced Bread Day. So we are doing it. There are some good things happening in Jeff City all the time, and we just need to find those. So those all I became aware of today, and they didn't make my PowerPoint.
Was the sliced bread relative to the whole bread company debacle about
I
sliced
have no
bagels?
idea. I just know it's going to be July 7th if it all goes. So I did hear that today, and while I didn't make my PowerPoint, I wanted to make sure you were all aware.
But you're making me look bad, Paul, because I've never informed this board of things like sliced bread, so that's
Aim to please.
good to know those details.
But certainly, I will take any questions and try. I can't say I'm an expert. I typically spend 1 day a week there. Mike Lodwigan spent 4 or 5, so I won't have quite the repertoire that he might, but I'll try to.
Do you happen to know, did I cut you off? Were you about to talk? Do you know, in comparison to other states, I know in regards to the calendar, how many other states might have something in line like that? I know Michigan.
16. And we're one of the
do.
16, so 15 plus us.
Okay. Because
I just heard that the other day.
I was thinking that Michigan recently backed off. Theirs used to be you couldn't start before Labor Day, and I'm pretty sure that has eased back because I know. So I was just curious.
Probably, in my understanding, there were 16 that, with us being one of them already, because right now we already have in place, a school district could start as late as they want. There's nothing that forces a school district to start. To me, that the idea there is that a local community, if you're one of those communities where there is a strong tourism influence, wouldn't you think that they would approach that board then and through that hearing process, because you have to go through that, if you're going to start more than 10 days prior to Labor Day, that they would influence that school board to say, hey, can't we push that back because we really need these kids to be a part of what we do here locally because it drives the region's economy. That's already in place. They could start in October if they needed to. But what I don't like is now that they're saying, and essentially one of the things is the state fair. And I'll be honest, having spent a lot of time in the St. Louis region, I don't believe if we start after Labor Day, we're still going to have an influx of people from St. Louis to the state fair. I mean, state fair is a wonderful opportunity for kids learning, for highlighting different things in Missouri, but it's not a big draw from St. Louis. It's more centered around agriculture in some of our rural areas. I think that's a flawed reasoning of why they would want to, as well as, I don't know that tourism is any different if we end earlier in May and people start going to the lake or to these canoe earlier. So I just think, it's been a strange watching this. It's come up probably for the last half a dozen years, and this year I think it will pass.
Well, thanks. This is a great presentation. I had several questions, and the reason is I've tried to follow this as Eric sent us the stuff, but there's really some interesting stuff that I want to pursue a little bit. You were talking about additional transportation funding was $5 million. That's not even close to what it takes for full funding. In fact, it's just a drop in the bucket. Do you remember what the figure would be for full funding approximately?
If my memory serves me correctly,
Additional.
I think we were short about $150 million.
Yeah.
I think the plan would have been to add about $30 million for each of 5 years had we had the funding. Don't quote me on that, but I believe if my memory serves me correctly, that was kind of the idea if we did 5 years at $30 million.
The legislature passed their rules in Missouri in terms of cutting taxes, et cetera, and so forth. In your mind, did they even think about how that would affect the revenue down the road, or do you think they care, or do you have any opinion on that?
I think they care. I mean, obviously they're kind of stuck with the mess now. I think what happens is there's two schools of thought. One, if we reduce taxes, it's going to drive a greater economy, and all of a sudden we're going to have this economy boom. I think the flaw there, while that I think some would call it trickle-down economics or whatever, I think the flaw is we saw that attempted in Kansas, and it was a complete disaster. The difference in Kansas, they had the ability as a legislature to go back and undo what they did, and they had to do a massive tax hike to kind of get them back to square. We just don't have that because of the Hancock Amendment. We're kind of handcuffed because of it.
Originally, wasn't the bill for charters to have allow charters all over the state, and they knew that wasn't going to pass because of the rural districts, so they knocked out the rural districts on it and just made it the districts you mentioned, or the areas you mentioned. Am I right on that?
That is correct. The original bill was charter expansion across the state.
Do you think this one might pass?
It's hard to say. I know that there's some staunch opponents in the Senate that have shown that they have the wherewithal to hold it off. One of the ways that the Senate would stop that type of a debate is what's called the previous question. And the Senate just doesn't do that very often. It's kind of, often I've heard it referred to as the nuclear option because it stops the debate. And their decorum in the Senate's a little different where they just don't do that. It happens much more in the House.
Next one was on vouchers.
Mhm.
You mentioned 25 to 50 million. I think you mentioned it. That does come directly out of education funds or the general revenue, which means that's 50 million that we're not going to get in public schools.
You could conceivably say that. It's 50 million off the top of everything. So
Yeah.
if we have about a $30 billion, that's with federal dollars, 50 million of it or 25 million would come off the top before. And that was the problem with even the other tax credit schemes that we've seen, such as, historical tax credits or low-income tax credits. You never know when they're going to hit because they're credits that sit there, and they almost become like a merchandise that people can sell. So maybe I get them at $1 and I sell them to you for 80 cents because I want cash now, and then you turn around and sell it for 85 cents for somebody that needs a credit. So it becomes almost like I said, like a fungible property.
The other one is a personal one. The website or the presentation you had tonight was excellent. I noticed at the bottom it said Ed Plus, Educational Plus. Are you guys the only ones that can show that, or can somebody else show that?
Can show it. Anybody wants to can show it. The one thing I would caution anybody, that was as of today,
Yeah.
and even the 322, as I showed there. So those things change rapidly. So something that may be noted as a committee, I probably should have put a date on it. And maybe I did on the first slide. I can't remember. But yes, so there's a date. Just as long as people put it for what it was, that was the best I had. And I sent it, I think, Janet, on Monday? So things have even changed a little bit since
I'd
then.
personally like to use that in my class this summer.
Absolutely.
Is it on your website? Or
No, but I can send it to you.
I'll email you if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I have two more quick ones. The calendar bill. Now, I think I know the history of the calendar bill. It used to be a long, long time ago. You could start school whenever you wanted because schools in southeast Missouri started the middle of July because they took 6 weeks off in September and October for cotton vacation. Then they came out 30 or 40 years ago with the time you had to start. It was Labor Day or after, but there were exceptions, of which, if I'm not mistaken, Rockwood was an exception because they had Rombach Farm out there. They had at least one farm, and so they had exceptions. They could start wherever. You mentioned some exceptions. Do you have any idea what those exceptions would be?
Everybody has the ability to do an exception right now. There are no exceptions in the current bill. The exception that right now, by having a hearing,
Yeah.
any district can start prior to those 10 days before Labor Day, but they have to have a public hearing, post that hearing, allow comment on it, and then if they decide that they want to start, they can do that.
With this bill, would they still be able to do that?
No.
No, it's
This
gonna-
would be
They're
set,
going to set the date, aren't they?
yes. So
And-
that would, the very earliest, and but if my figuring's correct, once every 7 years, you could start on the 18th.
Yeah.
And that would be the very earliest that you would ever be able to start.
Yeah, and I read besides having the kids to work, it is strictly a revenue reason. They want more money, all the places, the canoe rentals and all those. What I read too, that it's a revenue for them if they can start later, because people will take more time, vacation, et cetera, and so forth. I have one last one. House Bill 363, you mentioned it was changing. How's that changing in law? I'm not sure I wrote that right. It was like the second to last slide, or third to last.
363, okay, so right now, we can expend funds for informational pieces to go out about a bond issue. Not propaganda. We can't send out something that says vote yes for Rockwood because we want better school. But we can send out, if we pass a bond issue, we're going to improve Eureka's pool. Or we're going to do, so you identify what projects we're going to do with the bond issue. You can send that out through your website, through your, whatever. But this would prohibit that, the expending of any kind of district funds for educational pieces is our
Oh, okay. I
understanding.
thought maybe it would change it so that you could actually do that. It's the opposite.
It's the
It ties it down more. Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much.
Else?
I was going to ask you, are you familiar with House Bill 548 at all?
Might be, but can you?
Well, I was wondering if because I read just a little bit about it. It was something about online tax, but they were saying
Oh, the
that
Wayfair tax?
but I guess the funds don't go to the school district fund?
So,
how does that
there
work?
is that sitting out there. Essentially, there's a case out of the Supreme Court, Wayfair versus South Dakota or North Dakota, I forget which, but essentially allowed taxes to really begin to collect taxes over internet sales where there's not a brick and mortar structure within your state. The Wayfair tax would be a sales tax. Sales tax goes to Prop C. The current bill that sits out there would take that Wayfair, using Wayfair as a general term for online sales tax, would actually put it into general revenue, not into a Prop C fund. So it'd keep us away from those Prop C dollars that we see that generate that, half
But we
cents.
wouldn't see any of it.
We'd see it in general revenue potentially as a funding source for the formula, but not through that Prop C sales tax.
Gotcha.
I got two things. One, so 7/7 is sliced bread day.
7/7, yes it is.
All right, well, that means my daughter Remy is the next best thing since sliced bread because that's her birthday. The second thing is you had mentioned the House bill, I believe, that is bringing up potentially moving elections to November. I know you mentioned the negatives to it. What are the positives outside of getting greater voter turnout?
The positive, if you did away completely with municipal election, meaning there was nothing in April, obviously the municipalities, the county would save money by not having any election in April. Typically, I think when I was superintendent at Northwest, our take would be about $20,000 that we'd have to spend to have a municipal election.
47,000 this last time.
Yeah, for you, so larger so you would save that, certainly. The bad side of that would be obviously then the partisan piece.
You
And
still have to spend it?
you would still have to spend some, but some
May-
districts
you may
also
have,
have.
and you may have both. I mean,
Yeah.
we typically have a board meeting, a board election every year. So if oftentimes bond issues, ballot measures are done in the big election in November because the number's coming out. So I guess it would be a savings on a year that you were, if you were doubling up. Now, we in Rockwood, we historically run ballot measures in April, so we kind of already do that,
The big piece on the partisan, it's not just school districts. Oftentimes, some of the municipality, the mayoral races, the alderman races, some of those aren't partisan. And what it does is it insulates a little bit some of those public policy type from the dollars that would come in maybe from a strong conservative or liberal leaning where they start to try and influence those races because really school districts should be above the politics of it all. And I think that's the biggest concern. And School Boards Association would be against that as well just because for the same reasons.
People might get voting fatigue by the time you get through that larger ballot and just start marking people too.
A question about House Bill 464, the reading bill.
Okay.
So while there's no additional funds to it, is there any teeth to it in terms of core data reporting? What's going to be the follow-up from the state if it would be put in
I'd have
place?
to dig into it a little bit more. I'm sure there'd have to be a reporting requirement because if you're testing the students and identifying them and then having to set those reading plans, I'm not sure if it would be a data screen, if it would be there would have to be, any bill like this where it becomes kind of prescriptive, I don't think they think about those pieces. And oftentimes it's left in DESI, go figure out the regulations to make sure it's happening.
How does that interplay with Senate Bill 319 that was passed many years ago in terms of additional tutoring?
I guess it would be a supplement in addition to. So if we already have a student that maybe has that tutoring now, there might be a plan that goes in place. Or it may even change the tutoring that they do have to be one of the prescriptive, and they're fine reading plans for some
Have they
people.
given them? Have they been specific in the reading products that they're sponsoring?
Yeah, and I'm struggling to remember the name of the one. It's very common with
Wilson.
Wilson.
Yes.
So they're all OG. Or you don't have
I
them
think
based?
so. This is really, is it not, Paul? This is a continuation of the dyslexia bill a couple of years ago, or somewhat relative to it.
Last year too.
Yeah, was it last year?
Yeah, it's
last
being
year. I'm
carried by
sorry.
a different senator this year, but it's very similar. Not quite as bad or as prescriptive as last year. There were some other pieces in it, but still very. To me, again, it's taken the professional ability out of our teachers' hands to make good decisions about the kids they're working with.
Last question here. The House Bill 485, the one that references the special school districts, that would affect only the students that are in a separate school district building.
That is correct.
Okay.
Or it'd be my understanding at this
Right.
point. It would only affect those that are actually reported through special school district or Pembina County.
In effect, the partner districts.
No.
Such as Litzinger School? Is that-
Be Litzinger,
Litzinger, new
Southview,
owner.
Okay. Oh, good.
so it would
And it
only-
makes sense really
clever.
on that one, because to think
does
that you
make
might have
sense.
somebody with that's medically fragile that doesn't come to school because of it, now be dinged against a school district who's operating within a child's IEP, that since you didn't make 90% attendance, that would be a bad thing.
Else?
I'm going to correct something I said a couple minutes ago. I got thinking about that on the question about, or the effort to change elections all to November. I misspoke on that, because we're going to pay regardless. If we've got a ballot measure plus we've got board election, we're paying for both. We don't. I said that as though you can double them up, but you really don't double them up. Regardless, you're paying for both elections.
Get me agitated.
Yeah.
All right.
Wasn't my goal tonight, but
No,
I'm sure I
that's-
did.
Just that whole thing gets me agitated. Any other questions? Great questions.
Thank you so
And
much.
great update. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
coming.
Paul. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I am going to leave if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Understand.
I don't blame you. Your motion to postpone approval of the speech courses curriculum as presented until the April 25th, 2019 board meeting.
Move.
A motion and a second. Dr. Natalie Fallert and the new Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, Dr. Shelley Willott.
Congratulations. So Natalie's going to talk to you about the new speech curriculum tonight. I think it's one of those curriculum that we really don't think about when we talk about experiential learning, the real world experience, the life skills that kids get. It really is all in here, coupled with all of the literacy skills that we ask for kids. They're doing research, they're writing, they're reading a lot. So it really is a nice mix of all of those things. And so she'll talk to you about some credit changes as a result of that as well. All right.
Good evening.
Evening.
So, what button do I push? There we go. So our writing team consisted of, we have a small team because we have 4 teachers, one from each of our buildings, and so they were a part of this process, and I'll kind of start talking about the shifts in speech communication curriculum that you'll see. On here we've listed the courses that we're going to be offering, and the biggest thing is the credit shifts and the alignment to the new Missouri Learning Standards. So obviously those changed, and so we had to make sure that we went in and updated them. But the credit shifts really tie into the 3 courses that you see: public speaking, debate 2, and then competitive speaking 2. And in the past, our public speaking course did not count as an ELA credit, and in the state of Missouri, it can count as an ELA credit, and so can debate 2, and then competitive speaking counts as that as well. So to kind of talk to you a little bit about those, State of Missouri says you have to have 4 units of language arts to graduate, but they don't designate what those 4 have to be. And colleges and universities also accept those to fall into that category. So our public speaking course, debate 2, and competitive speaking 2, I'll show you in just a minute how they kind of align to our curriculum standards that also tie into the ELA curriculum. In the past, the only course I think that counted was competitive speaking 1, and that was it. Actually, yeah, competitive speaking 1 was the only one that counted as an ELA credit. And so we did kind of change and shift that. In that, we moved the requirement for public speaking that it's a 10 through 12 class versus a 9 through 12. And that's why we then introduced the introduction to speech communication, so that our freshmen could still have access to a course, but they weren't earning that 4th year of ELA credit at that particular junction. Also, that introduction to speech communication course serves as that prerequisite for if a student wants to go into debate or into competitive speaking 1. Now, they don't need that to go into public speaking, so we allow them just straight entry into public speaking as a 10th or 11th or a 12th grade student. But we did want to give them a little bit of some background information if they were going to go into debate or competitive speaking. If you're familiar with either of those, you have to be very well versed and ready to stand up in front of people. So we wanted to make sure that they had that foundation. Why we are opening that up at that freshman level is because we have a lot of kids who participate in speech and debate, and they could really hone those skills in a course if they were able to do that their second semester, their freshman year, or even the first semester, their sophomore year, and then really hit the ground running on that speech and debate team, as well as working on those in the class. So the priority standards that you'll see, the top ones really focus on just the speech curriculum that we really looked at, which a lot of those have to do with writing and speaking and listening. The bottom ones are the ones that really align to our ELA. So if it counts as an ELA credit, you're going to see these reading strands also embedded in those courses. It doesn't mean that our kids aren't reading in oral communications or an introduction to speech, but they're much more rigorous in that debate, competitive speaking, and public speaking course. So how we kind of came to this was our 11-12 writing team for ELA came together last summer, and we ended up working with Glenn Hancock to push out a survey to graduates from the 2010 to 2015 class, graduating class. We wanted kids who were a couple years in college who could give us some honest feedback of what did you think of the English courses at Rockwood, and what were we missing, what did we do well, and just kind of ask them some survey or some questions. We had 684 students who responded. There was equal distribution amongst all of the high schools. It was like 23 to 26% from the 4 high schools. And one thing that we saw over and over and over again was we need more public speaking in our classes. Like they felt that they needed more of that. They also said, and I'm saying this on record while it's being videoed, that they wanted more writing and more research. I was just like, oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
Yes. So you ask 9 through 12th graders, and they probably will not tell you that. But now that they're in college, they're like, oh, we needed more of that. And so we had a really long conversation with our ELA 11, 12 teachers about that public speaking piece. And the idea was, do we add that in? I mean, we're going to speak in our English classes. That happens. But do we add that in addition to our literature and our writing? Or do we say, you know what, the state of Missouri accepts public speaking as an ELA credit. Let's let our speech teachers really focus on that and dig in and let our kids experience it from that perspective. And that was the direction that they decided to go was, we're still going to do speaking and listening in our English classes, but let's let them really, work on those skills in that public speaking class. And so that was kind of the direction that we went with this. A couple questions that really came up at RLC that I wanted to address to you guys in case you hear them is whether or not these are NCAA approved, whether or not colleges are going to take them, and what does that look like? And so just to let you know, I just kind of pulled some of these clips. If a school doesn't actually say we will take public speaking, what a lot of them do say is we go off of the coordinating board for higher education's requirements or recommendations, and as you see, speech and debate courses are included as counting as that ELA credit. And then I just pulled Missouri State Universities accepts speech and debate and journalism as English courses, and then I also have Mizzou's on here. And NCAA, if you really want to go and look it up, you literally have to put in each individual high school. So you can't just put in Rockwood School District. You have to go in and look at Eureka, and then you have to click the button that says what do they accept for English credits and what do they accept for, history or whatever. And so this gives you a list, and I think that this one was from Eureka High School. So currently, these are classes that would count as ELA credits through NCAA. And so we wanted to make sure that we were setting our kids up for success and making sure that they weren't having to go back and retake a course or something like that. But those were some of the questions that kind of came up at RLC that we had to address. So other than that, do you have any questions?
Natalie,
Sure
you know
do.
me. I'm a little confused, and you know me well, so you can understand. How many credits of English do you need to graduate from high school? 4. And what you've set it up is that 4th one could be expanded to some other things, such as the ones you listed there, which I can't remember right now, that could give you the fourth. And that's all within the guidelines of NCAA. Okay, yeah, that was good. I was okay on that one. The one thing I didn't see in there was signing. Is that not a language signing course? That
would be a
okay?
world language.
That's Jeff's. That's Jeff's. Okay. I like this. I like the way you've designed this. Have you thought about all the other possible pitfalls? I know you thought about NCAA, et cetera, and so forth. Did anything else come up that you thought about?
Technically, never know until could take the 10th grade. Of writings. Not have an English class their senior year because they'd have all of their 4 credits. And I'm like, my answer was yes, they could go their 4th year without having an English credit. But my response to that was, I'm pretty sure, I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they will be reading and writing at some point their senior year in one of their classes. I'm hoping that that happens, even if it's not an English class. The other side of that is, you know, the state of Missouri only requires 3 years of math, 3 years of social studies, 3 years of science. And if we dictated and said that they all had to have, and we vied for that senior year, like they have to have a core class their senior year, then there wouldn't be enough hours in the day to fulfill that. So it's really not any different than our science or our social studies or our math classes. Of course, we would advise kids, if you're planning on going to college, you probably want to take an English class. Right. The other thing, being a certified speech teacher and having taught it for 17 years in the classroom, there are very few sophomores who take public speaking who aren't college bound. Like, they're going to be in a college level English class their senior year. And the other side is if a kid's doubled up their junior year and they're taking AP Lit and Creative Light Writing, they like English, so they're probably going to take it again their senior, you know, take an English class their senior year. So I do feel that there's going to be a kid who will graduate who doesn't have a English class their senior year, but I think it's going to be pretty small, like few and far between. So that was really the only other
Those
thing.
2 classes you had in yellow, speech and public speaking, they don't have to wait till their senior year. They can take those anytime.
Right.
Can take them as a freshman?
They wouldn't be able to take public speaking as a freshman. We only open it up to 10th grade, like 10th, 11th, and 12th.
But speech could.
Introduction to speech, but that one doesn't count as an ELA credit.
Okay,
It's more of
gotcha.
an introduction.
Okay, good, thanks.
And then debate, if they took that as a freshman, it would be debate 1, and we changed the requirement, like we said, debate 2. So, those kids technically at that point will have had they've been debating a lot, and
Good, thank
that's
you.
a lot of research.
Couldn't having that additional time, let's say the senior year, open up an opportunity for more personalized learning or some type of something innovative?
Internship.
Right.
Walk me through, I just want to make sure I understand introduction to speech communication and oral communication. What levels are those? The introduction is not
Introduction to
credit.
speech is 9-12, and that's just a general elective credit.
Right.
And then oral communication is also a general elective, and that's 10-12.
Okay, that was the one that's 10, 12.
Yes.
But the other one is 9, 10.
10, 11, 12, yeah.
Okay.
Hear those. Turn up the volume.
Can't
On-
hear
on
you down
ours?
there, so maybe when you two
I was just
speak.
questioning, I wanted the explanation for introduction to speech communications and oral communications as to the grade levels, and they explained that.
Okay, good, thanks.
Nice job. Very, very nice. Very good job.
Nice curriculum.
Yep. All right, so the motion is to postpone approval of the speech courses curriculum as presented until the April 25, 2019 board meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. That passes. Next, I need a motion to postpone approval of the World Language 3 and 4 courses curriculum as presented until the April 25th, 2019 board meeting.
Moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, so Dr. Willard is still here, and here's Jeff Tamaroff.
Good evening.
Jeff has the distinguished honor of being the last curriculum we're presenting this school year.
Oh,
So,
the best for last.
last year he presented World Language 1 and 2. If you recall, we took a different route on this. Rather than writing every individual language, we wrote courses that all world language would follow these standards and these course of units. So he did the same thing with 3 and 4, and he's going to talk about that today.
Correct. So we followed largely a similar process that we did for levels 1 and 2. We invited teams of teachers to come from all 4 high schools. We had fairly good representation. I was pretty pleased with the work group. We did have some challenges that were not present in level 1 and 2, largely because you can sort of get through your introductory sequences with very similar looking units across all 3 languages. When we got into level 3 and 4, we really viewed those, I'm not supposed to use this term, but I will, as pre-AP classes, and the AP curricula sort of dictated some of the things that we did. So while for the AP curriculum and languages, they all have the same, I'll call them goal areas, the sub-goal areas differ by languages. So we tried to create our units by the sub-goal area, so there's a difference. So for instance, religion is high as a personal identity and community in the German, but it's not high in French and Spanish. So in order to prepare our students to sit for the AP exam, we had to alter a little bit. So what we did was we looked at all of those sub-goals and found out how they would play out within the curricula, but we wrote common outcomes that would be able to be applicable across the curricula rather than writing really tight units across all the curricula. So that took a bit of conversation, but everybody got to be in a comfortable space, and it allowed every language to sort of have common language around our instruction and good conversations about assessments, but then still personalize things if you're a German teacher or a French teacher or a Spanish teacher. I forgot I have this thing.
And in terms of the rigor, there really is the biggest difference that we see in rigor in the world language curriculum is typically between the 2nd and 3rd year.
Correct.
So it's a pretty big leap that students are taking when they jump into that 3rd year. It looks significantly different.
Yeah. So the remote. So as we said, we wrote 3, 4, and 4, French, German, and Spanish. There are the AP themes that I was mentioning earlier. So beauty and aesthetics looks the same from a high level lens, but when you dig into that in French, German, and Spanish, it's largely different. Same with the global challenges, personal and public identities, contemporary life, science and technology, and then family and community. So we also, when we were writing the units, we tried as much as possible for the student experience to not only focus on a subtopic within beauty aesthetics, but we tried to weave them all in together. So for instance, one of the beauty and aesthetics units we looked about was art, but we also took in a sort of a personal and public identity and contemporary life. So how do you dress, and how are people represented in art and in dress, and ideas of beauty across all of those things throughout time. We also tried within our units to recycle as much as possible some of the topics that we learned in level 1 and 2, so we were constantly looping things back in, so while you're building upon your prior knowledge and attaching it to new content. So there again are our standards. If you remember from last year when we were talking about level 1 and 2, we don't have a lot of standards. We have 11 in total, and our main assessments and our directions are on our communications and our culture, and then the connections and comparisons and communities are things that are done with lots of our assignments. So we really focus in on that interpersonal communication and trying to set up opportunities for students to speak to each other in the target language. But while they're doing that, they're, for instance, making connections between something in Spanish culture and American culture, or making comparisons linguistically or culturally between a French concept and an American concept. There's a little bit more on that. So I think the biggest thing that we are going to be working on and focusing on our professional development is increasing our interpersonal communication. We're hearing from students that they want to talk more in class and have more opportunities to speak. Typically, we had been doing that through drills, so we've been looking at some opportunities for professional development to actually enrich those opportunities. in our interpretive mode, we're really pulling in things similar to what Natalie actually was speaking about in analyzing texts and doing research. And then after you do that research, you do something in the presentational mode to present to your students. So I'm thinking of a current French unit. They do extreme sports, which a lot of our kids are interested in, and the students will research a sport. For instance, parkour is very popular in France, and it's starting to be more popular in America. Students spend a lot of time analyzing parkour, which started in France, watching some videos, reading some history, reading some biographies, and then they'll make a presentation to the rest of their classmates in French, either in speaking or in writing, or sometimes both. And then, as I said there, we're trying to, as always, increase problem solving, inquiry, and critical thinking, and that's an opportunity to address those connections and communications piece. In level 1 and 2, we sometimes do that in English because the students can make those connections, but they don't have enough language to express what they're thinking about. But in level 3 and 4 in particular, they can start doing those things in the target language. So this is a fun year, and I think that's where the rigor comes in, because you're all of a sudden shifting from talking about high-level concepts in English really while you're in language class to being able to do that in French or Spanish or German. And then here's our core practices, and these are where our big instructional shifts are. And one is making sure we're using the target language as much as possible in class. That's our rich input for students. Designing communicative activities, that's that interpersonal goal I was mentioning earlier, making sure we're really having kids speak a large part of the day. Teaching grammar and concept as a concept to use in context rather than handing out worksheets. So using more inductive and deductive methods rather than drill and kill. Exposing our students as much as possible to authentic cultural resources. Our thought right now is to use our allotted textbook funds to have students have a rich cultural resources rather than using a textbook, because typically as soon as you buy a textbook, it's already outdated. And there's plenty of ways to access great content in French, German, and Spanish. Planning with the backward design model, so that's what really was influential in planning out our units, and then feedback is particularly important in world language as it is in other classes. And so I think, as I told the board, and as we talked about in RLC and we talked about with the teachers, I think the big one is in mindset. A lot of us that are of a certain vintage, we did a lot of drill and kill when we were learning our languages, but we really want to have our students learning through the language, not just learning about language as a thing. I can't tell you how many times I meet someone who says, I took 3 years of Spanish, but all I can do is conjugate yo hablo. That's not what we want. We want you to have a conversation. So getting everybody to that mindset that we can learn lots through the language is one thing. So it's largely learning from facts and rote information to things about the language. And then we really try to stress that you're teaching students literacy skills and the ability to communicate, not just language as a thing. And while you're doing that, you're also learning how to be a great global citizen and participate in other cultures. So I think that's all. Any questions? Yes?
You talked about, and I love the fact that you, again, have integrated the language arts into the languages, because that just makes them stronger. You talk about the backward design, and yet when I was looking at many of the modules, you don't have the enduring understandings or proficiency scales yet. At what point will those be added?
So the proficiency scales has been a struggle, and I feel like proficiency scales are new for us, and there are proficiency scales published by our national organization, but they're so high level, they're not much information for you as an educator. So we have a small group that's been attacking those that they actually are applicable in an educational context. It's just,
I think by module they would have to apply to that module.
Correct, and so they have to shift a little bit. So at this point right now we have the general ones done, and then we're going to have to attack them by module and change the language and then some of the level 2 foundational concepts to apply to that.
And I ask is that because as we lay it out to students, we want to know what they're accountable.
Absolutely.
That they know across the district, German 3 in Rockwood Summit is going to be the same as German
Absolutely.
3 at Eureka.
And I think the other big thing to piggyback on that, it'll make us have uniform rubrics that we can use, and then when you have
That's
a
gonna be the work
conversation,
during this coming summer and year.
that's part of the implementation.
And I would
work.
say that overall, secondary is a bigger challenge with the proficiency scales in elementary because they're already working in a standards-based world, so it makes a lot of sense to them. It takes a lot of convincing to explain to a secondary teacher why you would want to create those proficiency scales. And they consistently want to equate that 4, 3, 2, 1 to an A, B, C, D. So it takes more time to kind of work them through that process.
Just keep talking.
Well, and
We are.
It's also they associate it with a grading rubric,
Sure,
I
right,
find as
absolutely.
well, and a
I
grading
understand.
rubric is for an instance, not a whole course, and that's
Just want to make sure that it's on our radar.
yeah.
We're getting there.
Okay.
Now, did you say the enduring understandings were not in the
In
documents?
some of the modules, they're not there.
Okay, I have to check on that, so we may have
And
had an
so
error, because
I
we
won't
wrote
say
them
they're
all.
not there, but in some of them they're not
Okay.
there, so.
Thank you
And
for
in
letting me
backward
know that.
design, that would be important.
Yeah, no, it's the first thing we did in all of them, so that's a interesting thing. Thank you.
A couple quick questions, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
You said in one of your first slides you talked about beauty and aesthetics
Yes.
in world language.
Mm-hmm.
How does that tie into world language?
Well, so again, it's a cultural piece. So if you think about historical art music, so art movements, or music movements even. So one of the things that we do in French and in German, so German, it's rationalism, which is it's a literature movement, but it's also an art movement. So we study the rationalist period, study some of the German artists. So you're kind of pulling in culture information through talking about art.
Yeah. Has nothing to do with you speaking beautifully or being aesthetically beautiful.
We hope so, but
Okay.
no.
Okay, the second one's for you and Natalie both, or Dr. Fallard both. Both of you were talking about the students want to speak more
Correct.
in English and in world languages. Do you use Chromebooks for them to like build a portfolio of them speaking and watching them as they grow?
So I think that's one of the things we're talking about as we're exploring Canvas and some personalized learning options that we've spoken
Yeah.
about in other contexts tonight. It's just putting those tools together in one spot to make it easy. We have language labs at all 4 high schools, but we also use a lot of Chromebook tools to accomplish those things. So the idea is eventually we'll start collecting those in a portfolio so they could follow a student to a college.
I like that idea.
And
Canvas could definitely accommodate that.
yeah.
Yeah, and Canvas will give them lifetime access
Yep,
to that portfolio,
absolutely.
so we're really excited about that possibility.
And one of the things we're trying to figure out is in the Seal of Bioliteracy Initiative, which I brought to you all last May, we have all of those samples as well, trying to figure out how to get those to the students at some point to integrate into that
You use
portfolio.
Canvas also here.
Yes, sir.
How long have you used Canvas?
Second year, kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
Started last year.
Natalie, what about you on Chromebooks?
They have to record themselves and then evaluate themselves as well as evaluating their peers, but they keep those as kind of a running record so they can watch their progress and then give themselves feedback on their speeches, just as the teacher would give them feedback as well. And then my public speaking teachers are actually really excited. They emailed me today because they want to build the online course for some of these public speaking classes or speech classes to roll out in August so that it can be fully integrated with Canvas and using ARC and hooking kids up to have conversations back and forth that way as well.
You did say online courses, right? Is that what you said?
Uh-huh.
So,
A project plan for all of that, so if you want to come visit, we'll show you everything.
so they could take courses
Like
for high
public
school
speaking
credit. just-
online.
Oh, wow, that's great. I'm glad you guys are doing all these things. That's great.
I think to piggyback on Natalie's comment and Ms. Romberg's comment, that's the importance of the proficiency scale, because when we have students doing that, that dictates our rubric. So after looking at a number of samples and a good proficiency scale that's with it, it gives the student a clear pathway on how to improve, whether it's in the courses I work with or Natalie works with or we all work with, and that's why we're being so careful with that work.
I'm firmly convinced that if students would speak to a camera or speak to a Chromebook and then go back and look at it, they would improve pretty quick. And gosh, I'm awful. Let's Okay, good, thanks.
Anyone else? Very good job.
Thank you.
Motion to postpone approval of the World Language 3 and 4 courses curriculum as presented until the April 25th, 2019 board meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. Next, we need a motion to approve the review of policy 1820, wellness.
Move.
And motion is second. Dr. Knost.
Well, I think so. Of course, if you have questions, but really all we need right now is just, as you know, with our PIN process, we really have to have the board's approval to explore something. Technically, this is something that DESI's forcing our hand on with their review of our food service operation. So we obviously will bring it back to you. All we would ask for tonight is just that you approve our ability to do this. That will be spearheaded by Paul, but just need your approval to go forward with the review.
All right, any questions? Okay, so the motion is to approve the review of policy 1820. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. Next, we have a motion to approve the administrative salaries with a 3% increase to the plan for the 2019-20 school year.
Second.
Motion and a second. Dr. Reveille's here. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you. So this is requesting a 3% increase to the administrative pay plan. As you know, the administrative pay plan is based on a responsibility index, years of service or experience in a position, and the degree that you hold. So we're requesting 3% to the plan for administrators.
Questions? Comments? Because the board is
Voted on the actual people
Okay.
and closed, and he wasn't there.
Right. If there aren't any questions or any further discussion, the motion is to approve the administrative salaries with a 3% increase. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes.
Thank you.
All right, next we need a motion to approve the bond issue purchases and related contracts of $7,500 to $150,000 as submitted.
So move.
We have motion and a second. Deb Kettering is coming up for both of those, right? Aren't there two?
There are two on this one.
Yep, okay.
So the first one is just year 2 of a 3-year renewal. This is part of our virtual desktop infrastructure environment, and this is what allows the graphics to work in that system. Because it's being paid for out of bond, we have to do it annually.
Oh, yeah, it is district-wide, never mind, thank you.
It's one of the few
Yes.
times I read a sentence and thought to myself, there are a lot of words in there that are very impressive and, right?
You
It's a lot
didn't
in there.
understand those?
No.
Well, I'll
Okay,
talk to you
any
later.
questions on that one? All right, next.
Next one is for the purchase of Aruba wireless access points and the controller to run those for the new Eureka Elementary School. So we just need to get those in by the time they open up.
Understand all those?
Been to Aruba, does that count?
Yeah, I think it is, I think so.
I wondered if we have to go there to get them.
I would love I would love to go to Aruba to get them.
So
but,
what is
you know,
Aruba? I mean,
Aruba is just the manufacturer.
manufacturer,
Mhm.
yeah, okay.
And that price is in line with any other schools that we put them in, is that correct?
Pardon?
That 38,000 is in line with what we put in any school,
Yes.
so it's not
Yes.
Yeah.
And
for the size of that school and
mhm.
what we need. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right, so the motion is to approve the bond issue purchases and related contracts, $7,500 to $150,000 as submitted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. All right, next we have two. So the first is a motion to approve for the bond issue purchases and related contracts over $150,000 from Demayan Construction Company for renovation of aging restroom facilities throughout the district, West Bid Package.
It's the first one.
We need a motion. We need a
We have a motion, and a second. Mr. Northington.
Okay. Chris is on vacation this week. I told him I'd fill in for him, but this is part of our cycle maintenance, $1.2 million a year. Earlier, he brought to you the flooring packages. These are the restroom renovations that we're doing throughout the district. We split it out into two packages, a west package that we called it an east package. The first one here with the main construction will cover restroom renovations in several of our buildings, including Babler Elementary, CCL, Chesterfield, Crestview, Eureka, and Marquette High School. And for the most part, the renovations are residence flooring in a lot of the restrooms, some petitions, painting, just general renovations to some of these restrooms that we're needing of updating.
It's just select restrooms in each of these buildings, or is it every restroom?
No, it's just select restrooms. So
okay.
typically in a building, we may be capturing a band of student restrooms in a particular area, but it's not total renovations of all the restrooms in these buildings. It's just the ones that needed attention.
Based on need.
Based on need, yep.
Done by site, or do you have a checklist, and if it fits
Yeah,
the
it's
check?
part of the facility review that Chris does in the fall with the building administrators, and we set a priority list, and these were the items that were identified.
Paul, does that mean all the others in great shape?
Well, yes, sir, they're in good shape.
Oh, okay.
It's an ongoing process as we evaluate things on an annual basis.
But you only do that once a year to evaluate, right?
Excuse me?
You only do that once a year?
Yes, we do a facility review typically each October.
If something blows up, you would take care of it out of existing funds, or
Yeah,
come for a special?
We have emergency funds
Okay, good.
for repairs that come up unexpectedly.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, so that motion is to approve the bond issue purchases over $150,000 from Demeen Construction Company. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. And the second one is the motion to approve the bond issue purchases and related contracts over $150,000 from Hoff Construction, Inc. for renovation of aging restroom facilities throughout the district East bid package.
Correct. So Hoff was a low bidder on this part of the package.
We have a motion, a second. Okay.
Who
I
motioned
know we all
and
want to get
second?
out of here, but we got to follow the rules. We have motion, a second. Go ahead.
It's on the first
Hoff
one.
was
Did
a
we
low
ever-
bidder on the east side package, and that includes schools Kurz Elementary, Kurz Mill, Westridge, Werther, are the three that are really identified in this. And for the most part, again, these are student restrooms. Occasionally, we'll have one or two staff restrooms, but the bulk of this is all student restroom renovations. And the same thing as I mentioned earlier, a lot of residence flooring, petitions, some countertops, things of that nature.
Okay.
Where's the dividing line between east and west?
I'll have to ask Chris that.
All right, so that motion is to approve the bond issue purchases and related contracts over $150,000 from Hoff Construction. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you.
you.
All right, we're almost there. 808, Communications, Outreach, and Public Engagement Committee update. That would be COPE, and I have Jamie Bays as the speaker. Is that true?
Well, I'll start things off. We met
Okay.
March 4th and talked about a lot of different things, and so we are just going to each take a section. Randy's going to start us off.
So what we did initially is talk about some future presentations that we wanted for the board to have at future meetings. One we thought was really valuable was a President's Forum update. If you want to know how schools are, ask a PTO member. That's kind of your best pulse there. Something else was online learning opportunities. Be interesting to see if what else is out there. What have they come up with, since this is all kind of new to all of us. High school scheduling and managing flex time. So as we all know, that's happening next year, and that'll be really interesting to see how it's going, get updates on what works, what doesn't work, and just really get a feel for how that's going.
Do we do that across all of the high schools?
I think that's what kind of we'd
What
like
you
to
had in
have
mind,
that. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Update on how that's going.
Mhm.
Right.
Discipline. I know that's a big topic. Just look at some of the data and then equity in that. Just find out where we're at on the discipline side. Digital citizenship, elementary and secondary. And then finally, innovation rooms in Rockwood. Just find out where we're at on all that stuff. So So those are the presentations that we're looking for in the coming year. If you all have any other ideas or anything you'd like to see, just get with us, and I don't think we have our other meetings scheduled yet, Kathy, right? No, so there's some time, so throw something at us if you have anything else.
All right, Lynn, will you talk about the transition of the new boyfriend?
He's really cute. But you do have better hair, that's for sure. You have some hair.
Or
You know,
have
I think
tissue if you need it.
what we talked about is the opportunity to get together, to get to know Dr. Miles a little bit more when he was here, and that was a great experience. I think each of us had an opportunity to spend some time with him. And that just our commitment to ensure that he is successful, that the board is committed to doing everything that we can to make sure that he comes into Rockwood and he carries on the tradition of excellence, and he moves us forward. So we've talked about a couple different things. One is his evaluation process, how we give him feedback, how do we keep us growing and keep him growing in that position. So and we'll continue to plan.
And as a side note, do you happen to have that yearbook where it supposedly proves that he scored 37 points in
I
the game?
actually have it in my bag with me tonight.
I'd like to look at that
He
before I
gave
leave
it to me to
tonight,
give to you.
because I think it's fake news, but I'll look at it. Thanks.
I'm going to give it to you when we're done here.
Okay.
Okay.
Finally, I think that we all appreciate the efforts that you're making to help with the transition and that ongoing support, and I'm sure that will go on and on beyond when you're in Iowa, and we're still in Missouri. So it's just the transition is really something that we, as a board, we need to pay attention to.
And then the last piece is going to require input and discussion from everybody. And we usually look at a board retreat or some type of meeting where we go over policies or best practices among us. Some ideas for this year are to change that a little bit and involve MSBA. They have tons of good updates and information that they can bring to us to do some PD with our board. And Janet, being the awesome person that she is, has already reached out to somebody with MSBA. They sent over a couple presentations that they've done with some other school districts. They did a Fox one not that long ago. They are very in-depth. So where we're kind of leaning right now is in front of you is the one that we used last year, Board Practices and Procedures. I think what we might do is either tonight we can discuss this a little bit. I kind of went through it and starred some things. If we go through and just pull some of our sort of more housekeeping type things off, we could even incorporate those into a quick session in our very next board meeting, which is, I didn't write that one down. 25th of this month. So we could do those right away so that Tom is acclimated to those things and we're all on board with those. And then a large number of these bigger topics like performance of the board, the board communications, and the sunshine law, superintendent review process, those things are all part of the presentation from MSBA. They will come in. She said that her presentation to a board, and she will customize it for what we're looking for, could be anywhere from like 2.5 hours and up. And so Janet and I have talked a couple of times. She has tentatively booked her because she fills up pretty fast for our August meetings, because we feel like it's important to do that when Mark is here. There's a lot involving the relationship between the superintendent and the board. So August 1st is our first board meeting in August, which is typically a pretty light agenda. The next one is August 15th. So that is the first week of school. School starts on the 12th, which is Monday, and then that meeting would be on Thursday. So we don't have to make a decision tonight, but what I would recommend is the COPE members will get together and pull the housekeeping items for April 25th meeting, and then let's communicate by the next meeting if you want to get to me and tell me if you have a preference, if you know I'm going to be out of town on the 1st or something like that. Seriously? Randy, that's going to be our best bet.
So what,
So, I mean, another option is to pick a date that's not a board meeting and to do it. I think to do a 2.5 or 3 hour session with her, it might make sense to do that. Janet and I
Top
talked.
of a board meeting, that just doesn't sound
Well, what we
productive.
would do is potentially do closed more like at 5:30. We would have a shorter, both closed and open, start open at 6 and kind of just do the minimum at the beginning that we would need to do that particular time and then spend the rest of it doing this. So it's going to be hard either way, finding a date that's going to work for us and then for her as well. So, but if we're not going to all be here on both of those dates, then that's going to kind of dictate what we end up doing. So that's a lot of information and it's late. And so let's put our heads together and just be thinking about that. And the COPE committee will reach back out at our next meeting with another update. That works.
That's good. I'm glad that MSBA, I think going the MSBA route is a great route to go. Anything else?
Okay.
Thanks, Cope.
And can we get Paul Ziegler back at the end of the legislative session for any updates, or is that asking too much? I mean, it's
That would
only
be up
5
to the
weeks away.
board. Paul would, I'm confident Paul would be
Only
willing.
5 weeks away, isn't it? Because they have 5 weeks.
Yeah,
left.
middle of May.
Or maybe just send us the slides again. That was good.
All right, proposed agenda for April 25th, 2019. So if we can pull that up, please. We have, Cope, we're gonna have a fine arts presentation. What's Eureka High School large theater naming? We're gonna name,
Well, you want me to tell you about that now or then?
all right then. Okay, else?
There's a committee, I'll just say it generically, there's a committee that's interested in naming the large theater, and so I've asked them to go through the board policy process, and they
Okay.
are, and they're bringing that to you.
Okay. Anything else on the agenda?
Just add a discussion back to this agenda for COPE.
Yeah, the procedures. Yeah,
Okay.
let's put it
Anything
at
else
the end.
on there? Looks good. All right. Future agenda presentations, events to attend. Janet has it down here. Wednesday, April 24th, President's Forum Leadership Conference at Lafayette High School. Always a great event with all the new PTO people for next year. And then Sunday, May 5th, 4 to 7 p.m. Rose Award ceremony at the Doubletree by Hilton in Chesterfield. Another great event.
I haven't heard from a couple of you on that rose ceremony, so, yeah. You are yes. Okay.
Say
Jean?
it
Good?
again. Say it again, Janet.
Rose
Rose-
Award,
Rose
you're
Awards?
coming, but late.
Oh, you're still waiting on some.
Yeah. So Jamie, you're attending.
This Saturday is that St. Louis County meeting again. This time it's at Pattonville Middle School or Hickson or something like that. You're going to go? Is anybody else planning to go to that?
Are you planning on?
I would love to
This is the
go, but
first
I
I've heard of it.
don't think I'm going to be able to because Matt's out of town.
Oh.
You should have gotten an email invitation from Joe Miller,
No.
who's the
Forward it to you.
Clayton School Board. It was very good last time, and I'm sure this time they have a good
for
speaker
us.
coming too.
On second.
Just an FYI, we found out about this kind of late, but they're doing it a little low-key. Selvage is having their,
Yes.
somebody
Yeah.
didn't just say this, did they? Yeah. 50-year celebration. And, but it's not a programmed event. In other words, there's not an agenda of speakers or anything like that. It's just an open house. So it's kind of casual.
Is that on a Saturday? Is that right?
Saturday.
Saturday.
Well, this Saturday?
This Saturday.
This Saturday.
Yep. All right, anything else?
Going to that.
Or are we all ready to go home? Ready? Oh, we have to get our picture first. Well, I'll be like, our eyes aren't even open. All right, we're going to adjourn the meeting.